We see Nvidia shares down about 1%. How meaningful is this, at least in the near term, for Nvidia sales? Because we keep hearing that Chinese sales, they weren't really factored in the guidance. So why is the stock moving like this in the pre-market?
Yeah, look, it's a shot across the bow, obviously from Beijing. But look, part of the issue here is that, and we see it, all the big Chinese tech players, they're going to want NVIDIA's chips, right? I mean, there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution, but it speaks to this sort of balance that you're going to have to see. A lot of sort of regulatory scrutiny. But when it comes to, look, when you look at the upside, how you get to a $5 trillion market cap for NVIDIA, China is a key part of that story. But I believe here the bark will be ultimately worse than the bite.
All right. I know this is just crossing again. China's biggest internet regulator is telling domestic firms to stop buying Nvidia chips, terminate existing orders. According to this FT article, Beijing, and this is their words, they summoned domestic chip makers, including Huawei, Cambricon, and Alibaba and Baidu, and kind of tested those chips and found they were at least comparable to the Nvidia chips. I know it just crossed, but have you heard similar things coming out of China that they already have chips that are at least comparable? Maybe not at the exact same level, but comparable.
Yeah, Frank, they're comparable. Like, I'm playing Bethpage Ryder Cup in September. I mean, the point is, like, NVIDIA's years ahead of these other chips. And look, that's the reality, right? I mean, there's some grandstanding going on there. And that's why when you look at these Chinese tech stalwarts, they want that NVIDIA chip. That's the new gold or oil. And that's some of the challenge that Beijing's going to have here. But remember, Trump administration knows the biggest chip on the poker table that they have are the NVIDIA chips.
All right, we're going to go to our Eunice Yoon live in Beijing right now on the CNBC Newsline. Eunice, good morning. Can you share with us the latest that you're hearing there in China?
Frank, what we see in this FT report is that China's cyber watchdog is ordering local companies not to use an advanced chip by NVIDIA that's used for automated manufacturing. This is called the RTX Pro 6000D. The newspaper says that this is because the regulators want Chinese companies to use similar chips that are produced by Chinese companies, and this would include Huawei. Jensen Huang on a trip in Beijing introduced this chip in July, and what's interesting, I think, is that this report follows news earlier this week when regulators had said that NVIDIA violated antitrust law, and it also comes after we've seen similar pressure by the government to dissuade Chinese companies from using NVIDIA's H20 after the Trump administration had changed its policy and allowed NVIDIA to sell the product in the summer.
I want to look at Chinese internet stocks right now. They're moving significantly higher. Now, some of this is on some reports that Baidu is seeing some improvements in its AI business. They actually got an upgrade this morning from a U.S. firm. Those shares up about 8% last time I checked. We're all seeing Alibaba move higher. So just on the margin, at least for today, on the news, is this a positive sign for these Chinese internet stocks? The fact that Beijing at least is saying they can make comparable chips, and also the idea that they're going to lean more in their domestic AI industry and their domestic tech industry? Yeah,
and she was making great points in terms of for the domestic players. Look, this is bullish for Chinese tech, and it's part of our view. We're bullish on Baidu, because what this means is that, look, even when it comes down to it, they are going to get a significant share of what's happening in China. But look, this AI revolution, it's not just U.S. It is in China. NVIDIA clearly is going to play a huge role here, but this is very positive for Chinese big tech. Those stocks are going to be up today.
For people listening right now, looking at Alibaba, those shares about 2.33%, Baidu up about 8.5%, PDD Holdings up about 2.25% right now as well. So seeing some upside moves when it comes to those names. I want to shift gears just a bit. We have a lot of U.S. tech leaders in the United Kingdom with the president talking about investments just across the board. So I think I have a question for you similar to the one I would have had for our UK reporter, but we ran out of time. Why the UK? Why right now? Why all of a sudden?
Look, I think if you clearly see, like, they're trying to plant the flag, right, in terms of, like, the view that if you have an opening for AI, and that really has not been the issue in Europe, you're going to see companies like, you look at Google, you're going to look at Oracle, Microsoft, and others. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out who's going to be the one that gains share there. And I think you're starting to see that market open up. A lot of changes that we've seen over the last, week or two.
But why the UK? Why not Europe? You have also SAP, biggest tech company in Europe, obviously on the continent. Why focus so much attention on the UK?
Regulations. I mean, the biggest problem right now in EU is Big Brother watch. I mean, it's hard. I know so many any sort of tech startups, they're moving to Middle East, Asia. That's why UK, if you're planting a flag as a tech company, it's there. Also think about data centers. I mean, how many data centers you're going to need in terms of this AI build-out. That's why this is happening. That's why these investments are happening.
Is there incremental revenues? Is there incremental customers to be gained from these companies by making these investments in the UK? Again, Europe is a continent. They have the EU, and the UK has separated itself from it. Doesn't overemphasize in the UK, does that diminish at all the possibilities in Europe?
I view it as sort of not mutually exclusive. I mean, This is really just the start of what's going to be a broader build-out. Regulations is the key, right? But you're seeing it around the world. Look what's happened in the Middle East. We're seeing in Saudi and UAE, and that's what we're seeing start to happen in UK, and that will spread across Europe.
All right, we've gone all around the world. We're going from China to the UK. Let's come back to the US. You were down in DC yesterday, meeting with lawmakers to talk about crypto and crypto regulation. I know you put some pictures up on your social media.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you gave them to us yet, but it was you, it was Michael Saylor, it was Tom Lee, three obviously very notable crypto voices. What were you hearing from lawmakers? You met with lawmakers like Ted Cruz and Tim Scott, both senators.
Yeah, I mean, and we met with a number of senators as well as members of Congress. Look, our view, being down there in D.C., it's also about the Bitcoin reserve. It's the view that it's the legitimization of what's happening in crypto. And as industry leaders, of course, Michael Saylor, Tom Lee, and many others, this is not stopping. This is actually just the start. I could tell you as chairman of ACO, in our view of world and where everything's going from an authentication and human proof. Frank, this is just the start of what's not just on crypto, but it's AI and crypto. It's the intersection.
All right, so the intersection, that's really what your company, again, you mentioned you are the chair of ACO. We want to make sure we disclose that to the viewers because we're going to show the chart. Month to date, huge spike in this company. Shares up. Last time we checked, it's a company that's obviously moving a lot, up about 600% just this month alone. When we're talking about ACO and the coin that you're going to put out, also this company backed by Sam Altman from OpenAI, how do you expect it to be received in the market, and where does it fit in the crypto ecosphere? Bitcoin seems to be a payment vehicle, at least in some ways. Ether seems to be a platform that Wall Street wants to build on. How do you see your coin fitting in?
I mean, the reason that I'm doing it, it's the intersection of AI and crypto. I mean, when you think about utilities and human proof, everything that we're doing with the orbs, I mean, this is really going to be a key layer in the build out of the AI revolution. And when you think about our view of world in terms of that being significantly undervalued and the whole goal of this, I think this is just the start in terms of what I view is really the build out. You have 16 million, if you think about it, on this platform.
But is it for payment? Are people going to build on it? Like, what are they going to do with the world coin? You mentioned the human proof part, and over that time, we had our Tanea McKeel come on and talk a little bit about it. You've come on and talked about it. But what do you see the use case being?
I think the use case is going to be you're going to have 50 million, 100 million on this network. The monetization of it is really just going to start. And I think what you're going to see now is that this is something from advertisers to governments to other sort of verticals. This is going to be a de facto standard in the future of AI, and that's something I talked about in D.C.